time before the package is reported back.
Question number 12, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question's to the Minister of Housing. Does he agree with Canterbury District Health Board Medical Officer Alistair Humphrey that cold, damp and overcrowded housing in Christchurch has, quote, contributed to general sickness, end quote? If not, why not?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Speaker, yes, it's widely recognised that there's an association between poor quality housing or overcrowded living conditions and a greater risk of some infectious diseases, not just in Christchurch but anywhere. And that's why the government has seen over 160,000 houses insulated to date, and also Housing New Zealand will have insulated every state house where practicable by the end of next year, as well as commenced a significant reconfiguration of the state housing stock portfolio to make sure we've got the right size houses in the right conditions in the right places in New Zealand.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Does he stand by his statement that there is no housing crisis in Christchurch? If so, would he change his mind if he read the recent report from the Canterbury District Health Board, which said the shortage of rental houses has worsened in recent months, and people with mental illness, physical disabilities and terminal illnesses are struggling to find accommodation, and it is now a major issue?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, the member might like to drum up the idea that there is a crisis. The reality is that there is housing challenges in Christchurch. That's why there is a rebuilding program. That is why Housing New Zealand is upgrading its state housing stock, and that's why Housing New Zealand is looking at redevelopments in order to build another 250 to 350 houses in Canterbury. We need to address these challenges. We recognise that they're there, and we're doing the work that's necessary.
The Honourable Annette King.
Speaker, has he seen the report last week from Kids Can, a welfare organisation funded by the government, which states that people in Christchurch are living in one room in damp and mouldy houses, which are ideal for the spread of disease, and children are now suffering from poverty-related illness? And shouldn't such a report make him rethink his statement that there is no housing crisis in Christchurch?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I've seen a number of reports, and probably the most significant one was when I first came into government and discovered that many thousands of State House tenants in Christchurch and elsewhere were living in cold and mouldy houses. This is not just restricted to Christchurch. The fact of the matter is that the state housing stock was left in a serious state of disrepair, and we have to insulate it. And I think it's a shameful thing on the Labour Party that they never insulated every state house in New Zealand.
Dennis O'Rourke. Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What real evidence does the Minister have that there is no short-term shortage of affordable housing in Christchurch?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've never said there's no real evidence to say there's no short-term shortage of housing in Christchurch. What I challenge is the Labour Party's continual use of the word crisis, and it doesn't matter if it's housing or health or oil and gas exploration. They sound more and more like the Greens every day, and I can't distinguish between them.
Order. The Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. What is the average weekly market rent in Christchurch according to the average weekly market rent report he receives each week? And have rents gone up in Christchurch in the last 6 months?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I don't have that exact figure on hand, but I'm more than happy to pass it to the member if she puts it on in paper.
And that brings to a close questions for oral answer. Honourable members.